Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf, which is Eruvin Pei Daled. We're on Pei Gimel and Beis, 4 lines from the bottom, and we're in the midst of discussing a sugya where you have two separate territories situated near each other, and you have another surface, another mound, another pole, or something like that, which is situated within close proximity to these two territories. So in our case, we had a chutzar, and we had a merpeses, which is this balcony to which apartments would open. And the people living down on the chutzar made their own eruv. People living up in the merpeses made their own eruv. And there's some surface area situated within close proximity to the chutzar and the merpeses. The question is, do they need an eruv to use that joint area? Taisus explains we're speaking about a jointly owned area. So the Gemara tells us that it depends. If their access to this surface area is equally with ease or with difficulty, meaning none of them can access it easier than the other one, then it's considered to be a jointly controlled area and an eruv is required. However, if one of these, let's say the chutzar or the merpeses, can access this area with more ease than the other one, so it's considered to be within his control, he attains exclusive rights over this area, can use it without an eruv. Now what happens if this post is 10 tfachim elevated from the chutzar, but it is also 10 tfachim below grade of the balcony? So the people in the chutzar can use it by means of zrika, tossing upward. The people living up in the merpeses can use it by means of shulshul, lowering, hanging. So what is halacha here? Do we consider this surface area to be equally inaccessible to both, in which case none of them assume control and an eruv is required, or perhaps we deem one to have easier access than the other one? Machlokes. Rav holds they're both asa, because once it's 10 tfachim beyond your level, whether elevated or whether it's below your level, it's out of your usage area, and therefore it's considered as though you only have indirect access to that area. So both these, the chutzar and the merpeses, are considered to have inconvenient access, difficult access to this surface area, and none of them assume control, and it's considered to be a jointly used area. They need an eruv. Whereas according to Shmuel, he says zrika is more difficult than shulshul. It's easier to use something when you're looking down at it and you're hanging something down, you're lowering something, you can control it easier. So that fellow is considered to have more direct and convenient access and use of this area, versus the fellow down below who has to toss upward. Well, you don't really have control of what you're throwing, so it's considered to be an indirect use. So zrika, relative to shulshul, tossing upward, relative to using via hanging or lowering downward, is considered to be more difficult, more indirect. And therefore we grant it to the person living up above, who can use it through shulshul. So that's the machlokes we had between Rav and Shmuel yesterday. The Gemara today will bring some rayas to both shitas. We're going to have 2 rayas to Rav shita, 2 rayas to Shmuel shita. Let's begin with the raya to Shmuel. Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, 4 lines from the bottom of the Amud. Tanan, anshe chutzar, anshe merpeses. You have people living down in the chutzar, people living up in the balcony. The Gemara is assuming that the balcony is merely a means to get up to the upper floor. So they're living at a high elevation, a 2nd, 3rd floor, not living actually on the merpeses level. So that's the working assumption at this point. We have people living down in the chutzar below, people living up on the merpeses, sheshachach v'lo irvu. So although they made their own independent eruvs, but they forgot to join together. The chutzar and merpeses hasn't joined together in one single eruv. So who has access? Who has rights to what? Says the Mishnah, Kol shegavoy asar tfachim merpeses. If you have some type of surface area which is 10 tefachim in elevation. So you have a mound, you have a hill sitting in the chatzah, which is 10 tefachim high. That's l'merpeses. It belongs to the merpeses because it's easily accessed by them. Pachas mekan, if it's less than 10 tefachim in elevation, l'chatzer, it belongs to the chatzah. Says Mokasalka Daitach, we figured at this point, my merpeses, when we speak about merpeses, what do we mean? B'nei aliyah. They're living up in the upper floors, and they use the merpeses to access their apartments up high above. Why is it referenced to as merpeses, as the balcony? Because salki merpeses. Because they ascend up through the merpeses to get to their living quarters. And the Brisa tells us, the Mishnah tells us, that who gains control, who has rights to this mound, which is 10 tefachim in elevation? The people in the merpeses, despite the fact that they're living way up high. They have to use it through shilshal. They're beyond 10 tefachim of this mound down below in the chatzar. So the distance between their living quarters and the top surface of this mound is 10 or more tefachim. They're going to use it through shilshal, through lowering, through hanging. And therefore the Mishnah tells us that they attain exclusive rights. Apparently, when there's a choice between using it through lowering or through zrika, which in this case the Bnei Chatzar can only use it through zrika because they have to throw, they have to toss upward onto this high mount. Who gains control? Who has exclusive rights? The Bnei Merpeses. Because shilshal apparently is considered to be more direct use than zrika. Alma apparently, kol lezeb shilshal, lezeb zrika, when you have a choice between this person who could use it through shilshal and this person through zrika, who do we give it to? We grant it to the one who uses it through shilshal, which is considered to be more direct. This is a raya to Shmuel and a kasha to Rav. Says the Gemara, no. Keda'amar Rav Huna. Just as Rav Huna said later on regarding a different part of the Mishnah, he interpreted the scenario as follows. La'oisan hadorim b'merpeses. We're not speaking about people living up high on third, fourth floors. We're speaking about people living level to the merpeses. They're living on the merpeses. In which case they're not really at a distance from that mound. So just like Rav Huna applied that pshat later on, Hachanami here as well, going to answer likewise. La'oisan hadorim b'merpeses. When we give this mound, which is 10 tefachim in elevation, to the merpeses, we're speaking about giving it to people who are living on the merpeses, level to the merpeses, in which case the level of their living quarters is close enough to this mound in the chatzar. It's within 10 tefachim, within striking range. And therefore, they will receive exclusive rights to the mound. There's no shilshal taking place here. They have direct access. It's considered to be Pesach. Right? That was a term we used yesterday. When we have Pesach, means that you have direct use. There's no zrika required, no shilshal required. Then certainly it's granted exclusively to you. Therefore, they gain rights as opposed to the chatzar, because to them it's bizrika. They have to toss upward, and it's considered to be inconvenient to access, inconvenient use. Let's see Rashi inside from the top line. So the Gemara's kasha was that the mound in the chatzar is granted to the Bnei Merpeses, and the Gemara assumes that people aren't actually living on the same level at the balcony, but they're living somewhere in a higher floor. Bnei Aliyah, the Gvi Merpeses Tuva. They're elevated from the Merpeses a great distance, a great height. Aval derech Merpeses zu oilim v'yordan. However, they use the Merpeses to get up and down from their apartments. Now, v'tel shebechatzar shugava yud, this tail, this hill in the chatzar, which is 10 tefachim high, having nomech min aliyah yud. If people are living way up high, then the top surface of this tail is 10 tefachim away from their living quarters. The havel lezeb shilshul, lezeb zrika. So this results in the equation of lezeb shilshul, meaning that the people in the aliyah can use it by lowering down 10 tefachim, lezeb zrika, versus the chatzar who needs to use it through tossing upward. And what does the Mishnah say? Who gets it? Uktani. The Bnei Aliyah mutarim boy. The Bnei Aliyah attain rights here. Apparently it's the right to Shmuel, that shilshul is superior to zrika. Says, well, no, I'm not speaking about people living up high in the air. Hadar merpeses, they're living on the merpeses itself. Kigayin, sheish b'diyurin, there are apartments there. If that's the case, then they have easy access to this mound, and certainly it's granted to them. So to them, this mound is equal level to their apartments. Within 10 tfachim. Whether it's a bit lower or higher. As long as it's within 10, it's considered to be perfectly direct access, and certainly we understand why they gain rights, exclusive rights, to the use of this tail. Continues the Gemara. Ihachi. If that's the case, what's the case? That the people living on the merpeses are actually living on the merpeses itself. So the assumption here is that the balcony is somewhere close by to the chatzar. 10, 15, it's somewhere within the area of the chatzar. So if that's the case, Ihachi, Eima Seifa. Let's take a look at the Seifa of the Mishnah. So we just spoke about the mound, which is 10 tefachim high, which certainly is granted to the merpeses because it's within striking range. It's convenient for their use. But the Seifa says like this. Eima Seifa. Let's take a look at the Seifa. Pachas mekan l'chatzar. If the mound is lower than 10 tefachim, within 10 tefachim to the ground of the chatzar, l'chatzar, we give it to the chatzar. Why? Because it's within 10 to the chatzar below. Now, if the people on the merpeses are living so close by, so this mound, although it's within 10 tefachim to the chatzar, but we're assuming that it's situated somewhere between the chatzar and the merpeses. So this is the chatzar, this is the merpeses. And this mound, which is right here, the top surface is somewhere between the ground of the merpes, of the chatzar and the merpeses. It's within 10 tefachim to each. That's the assumption here. So why do we give it to the chatzar? Since it's an area which is easily accessed, which is equally convenient to both of them. So why do we give it to the chatzar? Amai, why? Lezeba pesach, lezeba pesachu. It's easily accessed to both, to the chatzar and the merpeses. And we know that when something is easily accessed to two people, they both have equal rights, and they need an eruv to use it. So this is a kasha on the pshat that we said. If people are living on the merpeses itself, it means that they're close enough to the chatzar, so everybody's within striking range of this mound. So it's a joint usage space. An eruv is required. If the people on the merpeses would be living way up high in the third, fourth floor, then this kasha wouldn't exist. But based on your pshat, that we're living on the merpeses itself, so everybody's within 10 tefachim of this mound, it's a joint area. So why does the Mishnah say we give it to the chatzar? Says the Gemara, my lechatzar. You know what the Mishnah means when it says lechatzar? Af lechatzar. It is granted not only to the merpeses, but in this case also to the chatzar. V'shnei masurn. And indeed they're both us. Because it's within striking range of both, of the chatzar and the merpeses. In which case it's considered to be a joint area, jointly controlled area, and an eruv is required. It indeed seems that this interpretation is correct. And when the Mishnah says the word l'chatzar, it simply means that it's granted to both parties, and an eruv is required. How do we know? Because since in the next part of the Mishnah it says like this, when does this halacha apply? This halacha that a mound which is 10 tefachim in elevation is granted to the merpeses, that's only besmucha, when it's within close proximity to the merpeses, meaning it's within 4 tefachim, so they have direct access. Avol b'mefleges, but if it's situated at a distance from the merpeses, in which case they also don't have convenient access to it, then afilu gvayu tefachim l'chatzar. That even if the mound is 10 tefachim high, it goes to the chatzar, because it's really inaccessible to the merpeses since it's situated far away from them. Let's analyze. What does l'chatzar mean? My l'chatzar. Ilema l'chatzar v'shari. Does the Mishnah mean that it's granted exclusively to the chatzar and they can use it? Amai, why is that so? How can you say that? Rishusa Tavayu. It belongs to both of them. Why? Let's analyze. This tail, this mound, which is 10 tefachim above the level of the chatzar. So to the members of the chatzar, it's accessed with difficulty. Bizrika, they have to toss upward. Fine. But there's no advantage to the Bnei Pesach either, because for them it's also accessed with difficulty. Why? Because since it's situated far away from them, so in order for them to use this top surface, they have to go and throw something. They have to toss something away from them, sideways. Not only is it getting a bit lower, but it's also sideways. So it's not really considered a direct control. So unlike a case where a person is using shulshul, meaning he's lowering something directly below him, in which case Shmuel holds he has control of what he's doing. It's considered to be direct use. This case is different because you have to throw at a distance. You don't really have control there. So according to all shittas, even according to Shmuel, in such a situation, nobody has preference. So why would the Mishnah say that the chatzah gets rights? In this case, everybody is equal. It's equally inaccessible to all. So amai rishusa tavayu. Amai, why is it mutter rishusa tavayu? It's considered to be both of them's rishus. Ella, rather you must say, my lachatza af lachatza. When the Mishnah says it's given to the chatzah, the Mishnah merely means af lachatza. It's also given to the chatzah. Shnei asur, certainly they're both asur, because it's equally inaccessible to both. They both access it with difficulty. The chatzah accesses it with difficulty because it's bizrika. It's 10 tefach above their ground. Likewise, the merpeses has difficulty because it's at a distance. So that must be shot in the seif of the Mishnah. Hachinami here as well in the Reisha, my lachatza, when we speak about this mound which is actually close to the merpeses, but it's not 10 tefachim high, it's within 10 tefachim to the ground of the chatzah, where the Mishnah says it goes lachatza, my lachatza. What did the Mishnah mean? Af lachatza, shnein asur, shmamina. Indeed, this is a raya that the wording lachatza simply is referring to af lachatza. They both are considered to have equal rights, equal control. So everything works out. Meaning, we're now supporting our contention that the people are living on the merpeses itself, and we're working with Rav's interpretation that the only reason why the mound, which is 10 tefachim high, situated near the merpeses, belongs to them is because they're close by. They don't need to make shilshul, because shilshul according to Rav is considered to be indirect use. It's only because they're level with the mound. Why then, in the case where the mound is lower than 10, does the Mishnah say it goes lachatzer? If we're speaking of people living on the merpeses itself, then it's within 10 tefachim to both the merpeses and the chatzar. So why do we give it to the chatzar? No, we're not giving it to the chatzar. We're giving it to both. The chatzar merely means af l'chatzar. They both have equal rights, and an eruv is required. Continues the Gemara with another raya to Shmuel from the next part of the Mishnah. Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, Chuyas haboyer v'asela. We have a ridge around a pit or a boulder sitting in the chatzar. Shein gvoyin asora, which are 10 tefachim in height. Limir peses. So it is granted to the people on the merpeses, and the assumption here is, we'll go back to the early depiction, that the assumption was the people living on their merpeses means not on the actual balcony, but they use the balcony to ascend up to their apartments, which are elevated 3rd, 4th floor. So the Mishnah says that the people on the merpeses assume full rights of the boulder, of this bar, because it is 10 tefachim high and beyond the reach of the chatzar. Pachas mekan lechatzar. If it's less than 10 tefachim high, then it belongs to the chatzar. So we have a kasha on Rav, because it seems that although the people on the merpeses are situated at a distance from the boulder or from this bur, nevertheless, since it is 10 tfachim in elevation, so the Bnei Chatzar have only indirect use, only zrika, they have to toss upward. Therefore, we grant it to the merpeses, who uses it through shulshul. Meaning, although they're situated 10 tfachim above this surface, apparently shulshul is considered to be direct use, in accordance with Shmuel. So this is a kasha on Rav's shit. Rav Huna. So this is where Rav Huna applies interpretation. No, we're not speaking about people who access the merpeses to get up to their apartments. They actually live on the merpeses level. Lo'isen hadaran b'merpeses. I'm speaking about giving it to the people who are living on the merpeses. And since they're living right there, in an area which is surface, which is level, just about level to the top of the boulder or to this bar, then certainly they gain exclusive rights, because it's within 10 tfachim to their living quarters. So it's not a situation where you're faced with an equation of zrika versus shulshul. In this case, there's no shulshul whatsoever. The chatzar can only use it through zrika, and the merpeses uses it directly. It's called pesach, because it's within 10 tfachim to their area. Says, okay, tenach sela, that explains the boulder. So the top surface of that boulder is within 10 tfachim to the merpeses, so it's considered direct access. However, boir, Michael Amemar, what about the pit? The Ritva explains that the Gemara assumes the Mishnah is referring to not only the top of the ridge around the bar, but to the interior of the bar as well. Now, the interior of the bar is deep, is down below. The merpeses can only use it through shulshul, through lowering that pail down into the bar below. Apparently, shulshul is considered to be direct use, and they assume exclusive rights. So it's a kasha Rav once again. Says Amar, no. Amar Rav Yitzchak, Rabbi Yehuda, Hacha bebar malaya mayim askinan. We're speaking about a pit full of water, in which case the top layer of that water is within 10 tfachim to the merpeses, and there's no shulshul required whatsoever. Within 10 tfachim, it's considered to be direct use. Says Maval Chasra, but once you begin supplying yourself with that water, the water level drops. The bar is missing some water, the water level drops. In which case, you're once again using shulshul because it's 10 tfachim or beyond. Says the Gemara, Kivan dechi mal yesharya. Since when the pit is full of water, it's mutter. Ki chasra na misharyos, even if it's missing something, it remains mutter. It retains its heter status. It's still considered to be within close proximity to the merpeses. Says more Adra, just the opposite. Kivan dechi chasra asira. Since if it's missing, in which case the water level drops, it's considered to be beyond range, and it's asur. Kimal yanami asira. Even when it's filled, it should remain asur. Meaning, since this area, since this deep pit, is considered to be out of reach for the merpeses, because it can only reach it through shulshul because it's 10 or beyond. So that status remains. Even if you fill it with water, I can't change the status of the place. The etzem place is considered to be beyond reach. Elam Abaye says Abaye hacha beboir milei pears askina. Speaking about a pit full of solids, full of fruit. In which case, the top layer of that fruit, which is within 10, is considered to be easily accessed by the Bnei Merpeses. So he's learning that fruit, which fills the bar completely, takes away the concern here. It's no longer considered to be at a distance, because we view the top surface of this bar as a surface on its own, and since that's within 10, then it's okay. Says Gemara, okay, that's when it's full. What about once you start using it? V'chasri. Once it goes missing and the level of the fruit go down, you're reaching out to beyond 10 tfachim. Says Rabbi Tivla was speaking about fruit which is asr b'achila, it's tevel, in which case it's muktzah. So that ensures that it remains that way throughout Shabbos, and the top surface is considered to be within 10 tfachim of the merpeses. Deikanami, the wording of the Mishnah indicates as such, the tani dumi desela, because the Mishnah cites two examples of this halacha. the bar and the sela, and just as the sela is a constant, it's absolute, it's not changing. Likewise, the bar is describing a similar case where it's going to remain unchanged for the entire Shabbos, meaning the top surface of the bar is within 10 tefachim of the Merpesa Shema Mino. Indeed, we have a raya. So this takes away the kasha. There's no more kasha on Rav, because we're speaking about reaching down to within 10 tefachim. There's no shilshul required whatsoever. It's considered to be direct use, and therefore they have exclusive rights. Says the Gemara. Now, the Mishnah cites two examples, bar and sela. The way we just described it, they're both pretty much one and the same case. The top surface of either the boulder or the bar are within 10. So why does the Mishnah have to describe two separate cases? Why does the Mishnah find a need to describe both cases of bar and sela, which are basically one and the same halacha? Tzricha, both are needed. The Yashmin and sela, if the Mishnah would only speak about a boulder, I would say, yeah, over there it works. The lekel and migzar, there's no reason for concern because it's not changing throughout Shabbos. The surface will always remain within 10 tefachim. Aval bar as opposed to a bar, migzar perhaps is a concern. Yeah, this time we have tevel in there, which will remain in place. But perhaps next time, zimnan, perhaps a different time, the maldi peris misakana will be filled with fruit which are mesuk, which are not tevel, which are mutar b'achila, which would carry a concern that perhaps the consumption of that fruit will lower the level of the bar, and will continue using it. Tzricha, the Mishnah needs to inform us, there's no such concern. Continues the Gemara. Now we're going to have a kasha on Shmuel. Tashma, the Brisa says, Anshe Chatzar, Anshe Aliyah, Sheshachu Le'irvu. You have people living out in the Chatzar, people living on an upper floor, and they forgot to make an eruv with one another. Now we have a wall, you have a Chatzar, a wall, and people living up on the second, third floor. Who has access to this wall? Let's say there's a ledge protruding from that wall. Who's going to use it? Says the Brisa, Anshe Chatzar Mishtamshim Basar Tachtonim. People down in the Chatzar have exclusive rights to the ledge which is within 10 tefachim of their ground below. It's considered to be direct access, and therefore they attain exclusive rights. V'anshe Aliyah, people up in the Aliyah, Mishtamshim Basar Yoinim, they have exclusive rights to the upper 10 tefachim. So we have the wall, and we have the window of the second or third floor. So we measure 10 tefachim below their window. We mark that point, and from that point and upward, it's considered to be directly accessed by them, and they have exclusive rights. Ketzad, what's the example here? Ziz yotzim na'koisel, you have a ledge coming out of the wall. Lamata masor l'chatzar. If it's within 10 tefachim to the chatzar, goes to the chatzar. Lamal masor aliyah, above 10 goes to the aliyah. So that's the Bryce. So the Gemara is going to make a diyuk here. We say that within 10 to the chatzar belongs to the chatzar, within 10 to the aliyah belongs to the aliyah. What about the space in between? Ha de beini beini. All that area between these two areas, asr, is asr for both. Now let's just evaluate what's going on here. This space between the lower 10 tefachim and the upper 10 is accessible to Bnei Chatzar through Zrika. They have to toss upward. And how is it accessed by the Bnei Aliyah? Through Shilshul. They have to hang, they have to lower downward. What is the Brisa saying? When we have Shilshul versus Zrika, nobody gets priority. We don't grant preference to anybody. And they're both Asr. There's a right to Rav. Ha de beini beini Asr. The no man's land in between is Asr. Although the Bnei Aliyah can access it through Shilshul. Apparently, there's no preference to Shilshul over Zrika. Rav Nachman says, Rav Nachman, we're not speaking about such a type of case. We're speaking about a short wall. The entire wall is merely 19 tefachim in height. And there's a ledge protruding from the wall. So the Brisa says like this. Lamata masora, if this ledge is below 10 of the aliyah, so if we have the wall, and here's the aliyah, and the ledge is beyond the 10 under the aliyah, who gets rights? The chatzar, because it's within 10 of the chatzar and beyond reach of the aliyah. Lezeh Pesach is considered to be easily accessible to the chatzar, lezeh b'shilshel, versus the aliyah who needs to do shilshel to get there, because it's beyond 10 tfachim of his area. So that's the first case in the Brisa. L'mala ma'asara, let's say this ledge is situated above 10 from the ground of the chatzar. So you have the wall, you have the chatzar, and the ledge is above 10 from the ground below, means that's within 9 of the aliyah. In this case, once again, it's accessible to the aliyah directly, lezeh Pesach, and therefore they gain rights. Lezeh Zrika, versus the chatzar, who can only access it through zrika, because it's beyond 10. So then, who gets rights? The aliyah gets rights, and not the chatzar. So we're not speaking about a case of shilshel, because it's either within 9 tfachim to the chatzar, or within 9 tfachim to the aliyah. Shilshel means using something, lowering something, hanging something at a distance of 10 or more, which doesn't apply in this case, because the Bryce is simply saying, if it's within 9 to the ground, then the chatzar gets it. Within 9 to the aliyah, then they get it. Now, what happens about that? What happens regarding that middle tefach? Speaking about 19 in height. So we have 9 to the chatzar belongs to the chatzar, 9 near the aliyah belongs to the aliyah. What happens to that middle tefach? There's another tefach there. So Mashal points out that middle tefach, which is within 10 to both the chatzar and the aliyah, is easily accessed by both. That's called lezeh Pesach, or lezeh Pesach. In that case, certainly all agree it's us, as we discussed yesterday. So it doesn't relate to our discussion between Ram and Shmuel, which doesn't apply. In this case, we're not speaking about a case of shilshel whatsoever. Continues the Gemara. Tashma, let's bring a right from a Mishnah to Rav Shita, that shilshel has no preference. Shtei gzuz shtrois zulam al mezu. We have 2 balconies which extend over the water, so 2 Venetian balconies over water, in which case they would like to draw some water from that body of water which is a karmelis. That can only be done, you can only draw from the karmelis into the gzustra, onto this balcony which is a sayachid, if you constructed some sort of mechitza which would allow you to do that. So as Rashi describes it, they would have a balcony with a hole in the middle to lower the pail down to the body of water below. Chacham required them to make a mechitza. A mechitza either around the hole, above the hole, or suspended on the underside of the hole. Now, although the mechitza is not really reaching the water down below, certainly not reaching the bottom of the water, this is a kula that was applied to water. As long as it appears that you're drawing from within the confine of this mechitza, that appears like you're taking from a confined area like Rosh Hashanah up to the balcony, which as well is a Rosh Hashanah. So the Mishnah says, Shtei gzuz shtrois zulam al mezu. We have 2 balconies situated on top of each other. So they are at different levels. However, as Rashi points out, they're not directly one above the other. They're a bit misaligned within 4 tefachim of each other. And they'd like to use the balcony to draw water from the body of water below. Asul el yoina. Now they both contributed to the expense of building a mechitza on the upper balcony, but they didn't do it for the lower balcony, in which case the upper balcony uses the water hole there easily, he just lowers his pail through it, whereas the fellow in the lower balcony has to toss his pail upward over the upper balcony into the hole and lower it down in that manner. So what does the Mishnah say? Shtei asuris, achi arvu. Both of them can't use this water hole, this hole in the balcony, even though it has mechitzas, until they make an eruv. Now, the equation here is as follows. The upper balcony has direct use. It's shilshel. They merely lower their pail through the hole. Whereas the fellow in the lower balcony, he accesses it with more difficulty because he has to first toss upward and then be mishalshal downward. What does the Mishnah say? We consider them to be both equal owners. Both have equal access. We don't prefer one or the other. Although the fellow in the upper balcony accesses this much more easier than the Tachtoin, because he has Shilshal versus the Tachtoin who has Rika. This is a Kash on Shmuel. Let's see Rashi inside. Up on top, says Rashi, Shtei Gzustrois. Mas Nisan Nitz, a Mishnah Gzustro Shilomala Minha Mayim. Balcony suspended over the water. Beis Zizin, what is Gzustra? Beis Zizin, two beams, Boltim and Aliyah, Shal Svasayam, protruding from this upper floor over the Yam, Mekoyvin and Nesarim Zelazeh, and they stretch boards from one beam to the other. Gzustra, this is the balcony. Utanan, Ein Memal Mimena B'Shabbos. You can't go and fill water through this balcony down from the body of water below. Why? This balcony is a shayachid. It's elevated, it's wide, has a din of shayachid. Vayam karmelis. You can't draw from a karmelis to a shayachid. Ella imkein osla machitza asara. Unless you constructed a 10 tefach machitza. Where? Bein milamala, bein milamata, whether above that hole or below that hole in the balcony. They would drill this hole 4 tefachim wide, like a mouth of a bar, in the balcony, through which they would lower their pail. They construct a mechitza around that hole, whether above the hole, whether below the hole. So you have the balcony with a hole in the middle. The mechitza was either around the hole on top or suspended below the hole. This allows you to lower your pail through that hole, through the mechitzas, down to the water below, and fill your pail. We view the edge of those mechitzas as though they're descending down and separating that water. Suspended mechitza was a leniency applied by Chachamim when it comes to water. It appears as though you're drawing from within the confines of that mechitza, which is the Shusayachid. So getting back to our story with the two balconies, so the one on top of the other, they're not directly one over the other. They're pulled apart. They're misaligned, but within 4 tefachim. And they constructed a hole and a mechitza on the top one, but not on the bottom one. On Shabbos, how do the members of the lower balcony use the this hole? They toss their dli, their pail, up on top, on the mechitza of the upper balcony, and it descends into the hole, and he lowers it down to the water, and he brings up his water in that manner. Says the Mishnah, none of them can use it. Why? Because they both control that area. Adds Rashi, we're speaking where they both contributed. It was a partnership. They constructed it in partnership. Okay, so what pertains to us is as follows. Apparently we see here that we have a case where lezeh b'shulshul, livnei el yoina, to the one sitting in the upper balcony, tashmish min lezeh b'shulshul. Their use is by way of lowering. Shemishal yam. They lower their pail into the water. However, the fellow in the lower balcony, how does he make use of this area? First he has to toss upward and then lower down. And the Mishnah says they have both equal rights. They're both asur. We don't prefer the upper balcony over the lower balcony. The koshka is certainly a case where they're more equal, meaning in this case the fellow in the lower balcony is very inconvenienced, doubly so. Not only is he going to be mishalshal, he's going to be zurich as well. So we have an equation where the upper balcony merely is mishalshal, and the lower balcony is to do zrika and shalshal. So he's doubly inconvenienced, and still we say that we consider this area to be jointly controlled. There's a kash on shmol. The koshka is certainly a case where it's a more simple equation where lezeh b'shalshal, lezeh b'zrika l'chuda, where this fellow has shalshal access and this one only is rika, where he's only inconvenienced on a single account, because he only has to do zrika. He doesn't have to do zrika and shilshal. Certainly in that case, what would be the halacha? That that the person who does shilshal doesn't have any superiority, right? Because even in this case, such as ours, where the fellow in the upper balcony has shilshal versus the lower balcony, which has to have shilshal and zrika, a double inconvenience. Still, what do we say? That the upper balcony has no upper hand. So, of course, in a case where it's only shilshal versus only zrika, where the fellow in the lower area only has a single factor of inconvenience, only zrika, certainly in that case, you won't give any superiority or preference over the shilshal. So the shilshal over the zrika. So the Kashan Shmuel, who maintains that shilshal is better than zrika. Says the Gemara, Amar of Adabar Ava, this won't be a Kashan Shmuel, because we're not speaking where the lower balcony uses it by means of throwing. They climb up the ladder to get up to the upper balcony, and they fill in that manner. There's no throwing taking place whatsoever. They're both using it through shilshal, so it's easily accessed to both, and are considered to have equally convenient use of this water hole, and therefore, according to all shittas, an eruv is required. So it's not a kasha on Shmuel whatsoever. Abaye Amar says different terms. We're speaking where the balconies, the height discrepancy, the height difference is less than 10. In which case, they're considered to be one and the same, one continuous entity. So of course they interfere with each other. Shmuel was speaking about one chatzir here, one balcony there, 10 tfachim separating them, and we have an area where they can both access, etc. Here we're not speaking about that. We're speaking about two areas which are within close proximity to each other, within 10 tefachim to each other. Of course they interfere with each other, according to all shittas. Now if that's the case, then why is a problem? Because why does the Mishnah describe the mechitza as being constructed on the elyoina, not the tachtoina? If the reason for the isser is simply because the two balconies are situated so close to each other, then what difference does it make where the mechitzas are? Says the Gemara, the answer is like this. The Bryce is simply applying the concept, a formula of needless to say, meaning the Bryce wants to let us know a greater chiddush. Certainly, needless to say, where asla tachtoina, in the case where the mechitza was actually present in the bottom balcony and not in the upper balcony, where everybody uses the lower balcony, of course, in that case, the asiri, of course there'll be asa, because once again we're speaking where they're so close to each other and then they interfere with each other, unless they make an error. Why? The kivin, the begoyu dada, the kaimen, since they're within 10 tachim to each other, asna dadi, they interfere with each other. So that's pashut. The chiddush is as follows: Ela afilu asla el yoina, even in the case where the mechitza is up above, but they didn't do it for the tachtoina, and the tachtoina is using the upper balcony, which is, although it's within 10 tefachim, but it's slightly inconvenient for them. They have to toss upward and lower. So, I would think perhaps there would be room to say, since we're faced with a situation where this area is more easily used, more easily accessed by the member of the upper balcony, it's lezeh benachas, because he only needs to lower through the hole. Lezeh bekasha, in contrast with the lower balcony, who has a bit difficulty getting to the hole on top. He has to throw his pail upward. Perhaps in this case, who gains priority? Less ve'lezeh shetashvisha benachas. Let's grant it to the member of the upper balcony, who uses it with more ease. Kamash malan, the chiddush is no. Kivan the begoy asara kaimen. Since they're situated within 10 tefachim to each other, asna dadi, they interfere with each other. So, at the end of the day, there's no kasha on Shmuel, because we're speaking where they're within 10 tefachim to each other, and it's unrelated to Shmuel, speaking about a case where you're 10 tefachim above that surface, in which case you have to do shilshal, which doesn't apply in this case. So according to Abaye, we're speaking where the balconies are within 10 tefachim to each other, and therefore they're considered to be one continuous entity, and the fellow in the lower balcony cannot make use of the water hole on top without an eruv. Says the Gemara, the Amar of Nachman Shmuel. This concept where two areas are within 10 tefachim to each other, and therefore considered to be one continuous entity and interfere with each other, is found in the halacha, the Amar of Nachman Amar Shmuel. Gag hasamach l'Rishus Harabim. We have a rooftop which is situated near Rishus Harabim. As Tosfos explains, this rooftop had mechitzos and was open towards Rishus Harabim. So we have a street, we have a rooftop, which is within 10 tefachim to the Rishus Harabim, meaning the height discrepancy, the elevation difference is less than 10 tefachim. Now this roof had mechitzos around it, but it had a Pesach. It was open to the Rishus Harabim. So since the Pesach of the Gag is exposed to Rishus Harabim, and it's within 10 tefachim elevation of Rishus Harabim, what is the halacha? Gag hasamach Rishus Harabim sorech sulam kavol atiroi. You need to station a permanent ladder from the house below to the roof, where the owner will indicate by doing so, look, I'm regaining control of my rooftop. I'm detaching it from Rishus Harabim. Because otherwise, the fact that it's within close proximity to Rishus Harabim, the Bnei Rishus Harabim will interfere. Tosfos says it will become like a non-residential area, like a karfif, which creates concern, which creates limitations when it comes to carrying. So the only way to extricate it from Rishus Harabim, to detach it, is by the owner going ahead and making that statement. Look, I want my roof back. He places a permanent ladder stretching from his house below up to his roof, which indicates that he's regaining control of his rooftop. So we need a sulam kavoi latiroi to make it mutter. Sulam kavoyin, only a permanent ladder. Sulam aray loy, but just a temporary ladder won't work. My time and why? It says rooftop. Why? How is it going to be affected by Rishus Harabim? Lav mishum, apparently because the kivan the b'seich asor adadi kaimi. Since both territories, both surfaces are within 10 tefachim to each other, the roof and the Rishus Harabim, that is, asor adadi, interfere with each other. So likewise, in our case, with the two balconies are within 10 tefachim, they interfere with each other. Maskef Rav Papa. Said Rav Papa, how do you know? V'dilma, perhaps the case of the rooftop near Rishus Harabim was speaking where the rooftop was actually elevated 10 tefachim beyond Rishus Harabim. So how could Rishus Harabim interfere? V'dilma k'sharabim mekatfen alav. Becomes of a sudra. Was speaking that the Rabbim actually make use of that rooftop by placing their kumsa, their cap, their sudra, their scarves. So Rashi explains, on a hot day, a fellow will stop for a minute to cool off. So he hangs his hat and jacket on this fellow's rooftop. So in this case, even if it's 10 tefachim in elevation, since the Rishus Harabim actually make use of this area, and it says, it explains, it's only a rooftop, it's not a real residential area. It's not a primary place of residence. So by their use of this rooftop, they negate somewhat the Rishus Hayachid status, the residential status of that rooftop, and create complications. So Rav Papa maintains that it's unrelated to our discussion. We want to bring a raya from this halacha that anything within 10 tefachim is considered to be one and connected. What was the raya? In the case of the rooftop, which evidently was within 10 to Rishus Harabim. Says Rav Papa, no, it was beyond 10. How then could the Rishus Harabim interfere with this rooftop, which is beyond their area, 10 tefachim beyond? The answer is because they happen to use it. They hang the hat and jacket on it, in which case their use of that area will affect the area and negate somewhat its Rishus Hayachid status. Okay, time for a brief review of today's daf. We began initially with the Machlekes Rav and Shmuel. We have this surface area which is accessed by one territory via Zrika. So it's 10 tafach in elevation, they need to toss upward. And the other fellow in the other territory can access it through Shilshul, meaning he looks down at it and it's 10 tefachim below, so he needs to hang, to lower something onto that surface. According to Rav, the fact that it's 10 tefach removed from your area, it's out of your makom shimush, it's not considered as though you have direct use. So they're both equally inconvenienced, they both have equal difficulty accessing this area, and it's considered to be a jointly used area, jointly controlled area, and they can only use it with an Eruv. Whereas according to Shmuel, Shilshul is deemed to be superior than Zrika. When you hang something, when you lower something over a surface, you still have more control than just tossing something upward. Therefore, according to Shmuel, we look at the personal use, personal control that you have. So although it's 10 tefachim beyond your area, you still have more control than the other fellow, and you attain exclusive rights to that area when it comes to Shabbos, and you don't need an Erev to use it. The Gemara had two kashas on Rav. The first one was from the case where the mound in the Chatzar was 10 tefachim high. It is granted to the person living in the Merpeses. The Gemara figured the Merpeses is, the people living in the Merpeses are way up high and beyond reach of that mound. They're beyond 10 tefachim of that mound. So apparently, using something through shilshul is considered to be direct use. The Gemara said no. They're actually living on the Merpeses itself, which is pretty much level with that mound. The Gemara, a similar kasha from the case of the boulder of the bar. The Gemara said there as well, they're speaking about people living on the Merpeses who are pretty close by to this surface area, and therefore no shilshul is required, and there's no kasha on Rav. We had two kashas on Shmuel. The case of the ledge in the wall, which the Gemara figured involved shilshul. The Gemara answered no, there was no shilshul involved whatsoever, because it was within 10 tefachim to the aliyah, which case has no relation to Shmuel's case. And the case of the two balconies, the Gemara initially figured also involved a case of a competition between the upper balcony who uses the hole through shilshul versus the lower balcony who uses it through srika and shilshul. And we still see from here that shilshul has no preference. The Gemara had two turutzim. Either the lower balcony doesn't use it through tossing. They actually come up personally to use it, in which case it's equally accessed by both members. Tabai was speaking where the balconies were within 10 tefachim to each other, in which case the mere fact that they're so close to each other creates that interference, and nobody can use it without an Erev. The Gemara brought a right from the case of a rooftop, which is similar, which is closer to Sarabim, which the Gemara interpreted to be within 10 tefachim. So you see from there likewise that anything within 10 tefachim is considered to be connected and affected by each other.